A Roman pagan centurion coined the words in today's gospel that we repeat, unchanged except for one, 3 times in every Holy Mass. This outrageously matter-of-fact, even sober, and all the more profound faith of the officer who cares for his servant touches Christ. The captain is completely convinced, he is sure. He does not cry, does not lament, does not throw himself at Christ's feet, no. In the simplicity that can only come from true humility, he knows that he who can cleanse leprosy by the simple laying on of hands has only to say a word, even if from a distance. Nor is the centurion concerned with himself. Lord, my servant lies in my house, paralyzed, and is evil tormented. Of course, Christ knows what will happen, but he communicates his willingness to come at once. Lord, I am not worthy that thou shouldst enter under my roof, but say a word that my servant may be healed. Lest to instruct Christ, one does not instruct the Lord, who works miracles, but rather to explain his own understanding, the officer adds, namely, I am also a man subject to authority, and I have soldiers under me, and I say to the one, Go, and he goes, and to the other, Come, and he comes, and to my fellow, Do it, and he does it. And there Jesus marvels, not in the sense of surprise, but of admiration. Truly I tell you, I have not found so much faith in Israel. The captain sees his puer lying down sick. Puer is the officer's boy, who has existed since time immemorial, and not his servus, his servant. No officer can replace or spare his boy just like that. Moreover, this officer is humble, and, one must therefore also assume, just. He is also a gentleman, that is, someone who knows how to behave. He is not interested in himself. He is not interested in inviting the great master to his house in order to proudly tell everyone about it, as it is so common nowadays. The Archbishop sat in that chair in 1986. He does not consider himself important, but he feels sorry for his boy. For him, it is clear, this miracle worker can help him, and because he is a great man, he is not worthy of his presence as a simple captain. I wish that those who, with 100 excuses, try to get permission to keep the Blessed Sacrament in a private house, or for whom any excuse is enough to bring the priest into the house, often in order to be considered quote-unquote persons of trust, would understand this. Not so the centurion. Quote, what you can do from here, you don't need to do at my house after an unnecessary walk. End quote. So he seems to say. Would that those who bombard the priest with 100 letters, often not even with questions, but with all kinds of teachings that do not belong to them at all, would understand this. Ask the priests a lot, yes, they have studied, and they should, O Mary help, also know a lot, but take the example of the centurion of Capharnaum before your eyes, and think long and well before a letter or a telephone call disturbs the priest in a manner that is perhaps much more important. Follow the example of this officer and gentleman, who does not hesitate for a single second to ask Christ for his help, but does so briefly, clearly, succinctly, politely, and after due deliberation. This Gentile, of whom we can be sure that he died as a Christian, perhaps even was martyred, also motivates Christ to make a statement to those who followed him, and which we now think we can easily understand. Many Gentiles will come and sit at the table with Abraham and Isaac, but those of the chosen people will go to hell. Was that all? No gospel is bound only to its time. In the meantime, we must be careful that we do not end up like the quote-unquote sons of the kingdom for the heathen today, or the Mohammedans and the Buddhists and so many others, while we are chosen by our baptism and confirmation. Moreover, we have received the undeserved privilege of understanding the role of tradition as the constitution of the Church, and this makes us the quote-unquote sons of the kingdom. Only in the bestial modern economic order is there absolute ownership. In the light of God, one receives it only for administration. Beware of either wanting to pass off as one's own something that one has received from God, or being stingy with it. This by no means only the possession, the mammon, but probably also the spiritual gifts. We must neither hide our light under a bushel, nor declare it to be greater than it is. We have received the gift of tradition free of charge, which has not been given to too many. How many pastors have remained faithful to the faith against all odds, like Father Milch? How do we deal with our gift? Do we meet all quote-unquote Novus Ordo people with a sullen and supercilious face? Wouldn't it be possible that this one goes to heaven and we don't? Let us rather assume that, given the words of today's gospel, tradition is a place of truth and means of salvation, not a place of knowledge and certainly of salvation. Let us limit our judgments to words and facts, and even that only to the best of our knowledge and conscience, because it is unbelievable what malice and meanness reigns in the Sunday and parish rumor mill, carrying down the life of grace of so many believers to inevitable ruin. There is an iron rule here. First, keep silent yourself, even if something comes to your ears. Second, change the subject or break off the conversation if someone else tries to, quote-unquote, blow in our ears. Third, only if something is of the utmost importance and threatens to harm the common good, turn to the priest. Let us also beware of despising those who do not understand tradition. I cannot count the number of times in the years since I went to Rome as a seminarian in 1967 that traditionalists have despised me because I was not one of them then. This is not only counterproductive, because one concludes that everyone is like that, but it is a blatant ingratitude and unkindness, because in this way one tramples on Christ, to whom one owes everything. In this regard, let us examine our conscience before the next time we say before communion, Lord, I am not worthy. For only when our conscience is searched and purified by a good confession and the appropriate resolutions will the truth of today's gospel apply to us. And in that same hour his soul was healed.